Hi, I'm Dr. Bhargav Raut, a pathologist with 10 years of experience interpreting Widal tests from Pathofast Lab in Pune. I've interpreted hundreds, maybe thousands of Widal tests, and I'm going to explain to you what this Widal 1:80 or 1 divided by 80 positive actually means. Just imagine that you have a glass of water and you add 1 spoon of sugar to it. I now ask you to take a sip of this water. It's quite likely that it will taste a little sweet. I now tell you, let's add another glass of water into this. We now have 2 glasses of water with just 1 spoon of sugar. If I ask you to take a taste of that, it will be slightly less sweet. Suppose we continue this, we just keep on adding glasses of water to the earlier amount of water that we already have. By the time you reach the 4th or the 5th or maybe the 6th glass, you may not even be able to taste the sugar anymore. This is what I'm trying to explain by means of a sequential dilution, which is what we do in the Widal test. So what we do in the Widal test is just like the sugar and water analogy. We start with 1 part of the patient's serum, which is like 0.1 ml, and we use 20 parts of saline, which is like water, which is 1.9 ml. So to begin with, we have 1 part of the serum and 20 parts of a diluent. We keep diluting this in equal quantities every time, so that by the time we reach our 3rd tube, we have 80 parts of saline and 1 part of serum. So it's already very dilute. Now, how does this help us to diagnose something? The way this works is that when we start off with the dilutions, we have 1 part of the serum and 20 parts of the diluent. So let's assume that there are antibodies in the serum against the typhoid infection. The antibodies are things that our body makes to fight against the typhoid infection, and these are the things that we are actually trying to detect in this Widal test. So coming back to our earlier example, in the first tube we have 1 part of serum and 20 parts of the diluent. That basically could be one way of saying we have 1 part of the antibodies and 20 parts diluted 20 times. By the time we reach, say, the 3rd tube, where we have the same number of antibodies, but now we have diluted it 80 times, so we call it 1:80, we expect that the percentage of antibodies in the solution just goes on reducing because we keep on diluting it. And so the maximum dilution at which we get a reaction is called the actual amount of the antibodies present in that sample. It's easy to understand that the more I dilute it, the less and less likely it is that we are actually going to detect the antibodies because their relative percentage goes on reducing. So if you get a reaction at, say, 1:80, what it means is that the antibodies are present in such a level, in such a high level, that even when we diluted the serum 80 times, we could still detect the antibodies. Is a titer of 1:80 or 1 divided by 80 considered to be positive or negative in the Widal test? So a cutoff of 1:80 is considered to be positive for the O and the AH types of typhoid antibodies. That means that it is considered positive for paratyphi A as well as for Salmonella typhi, but it is not considered positive for the H antibodies and definitely not for the paratyphi B. And so you have to interpret with caution. What is important is that you can go in for a paired testing. That means retest the patient, get yourself tested again after 2 to 3 weeks. Watch for rising titers of the Widal test. The numbers in the second test should be around 3 or 4 times higher than whatever you got in your first test. That is far more confirmatory of a positive Widal test.